Welcome to The Night Story, where real scary experiences are told in the quiet. Tonight's story takes place in a hotel, a temporary place where strangers pass through, and sometimes not all of them leave. And before we begin, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Have you ever stayed somewhere that felt occupied in a way you couldn't explain? Not noisy, not obviously wrong, just aware of you. This happened in 2011, and I still don't like walking down hotel hallways at night because of it. My wife and I had flown to London for our anniversary. It was supposed to be a quiet trip, nothing extravagant. Just a few days away from work, some sightseeing, dinners, walking around the city. The hotel we booked was near Paddington, not modern, but not run down either. One of those older buildings that had been renovated just enough to pass as comfortable. 4 floors, narrow corridors, low ceilings, the kind of place where sound doesn't travel the way you expect it to. The carpets were thick, almost too thick, like they swallowed footsteps instead of muffling them. Even when people walked past your door, you didn't hear movement. You felt absence, like the hallway had gone empty again. We were on the 4th floor. At the far end of the corridor, there was an ice machine right beside the emergency stairwell door. That part of the hallway always felt different, colder, quieter, not dramatically, just enough that you noticed it without wanting to. The first night, I didn't think anything of it. Around midnight, I stepped out to get ice. My wife had already gone to bed. The hallway lights were dim, not flickering, just low, yellowed. As I walked toward the end, I saw him, a man standing near the ice machine, tall, thin, wearing a dark jacket. He wasn't using it, he was just standing there, facing the wall. At first I thought maybe he was reading something, instructions maybe, or just waiting. When I got closer, he turned his head slightly, not fully, just enough to register that I was there. His face was calm, completely neutral. No acknowledgement, no irritation, no friendliness, just awareness. I gave a small nod, that automatic, polite thing you do when you pass someone in a quiet place. He didn't return it. He just turned away and walked into the stairwell. The door closed behind him without a sound. That was it. It felt a little strange, sure, but nothing I couldn't explain away. Hotels are full of quiet, awkward encounters. People avoiding eye contact. People moving around at odd hours. I filled my bucket with ice and went back to the room. Didn't mention it. The second night was when it changed. It was later this time, maybe closer to 1 a.m. Again, I went out for ice, but this time I didn't make it to the end of the hallway before I saw him. He was standing 3 doors down from ours, perfectly still, facing room 412, not knocking, not moving, just standing there. Something about it made me slow down. It wasn't just that he was there, it was how still he was, like he'd been standing there for a long time. I stepped into the hallway fully, and the floor didn't creak, it didn't shift, it just accepted my weight. He turned his head, slowly, and looked at me. Same expression, blank, calm, but this time, it didn't feel neutral, it felt deliberate, like he'd already noticed me before I stepped out. I forced another nod, a quick one, no response. I kept walking past him, trying not to look too closely. As I passed, I noticed something else. He wasn't looking at the door anymore. He was watching me. All the way down the hall, I could feel it. When I reached the ice machine, I hesitated before turning around. But when I did, he was gone. No footsteps, no door, just gone. I told myself he must have gone into the stairwell again. That was the only logical explanation. Still, when I got back to the room, I locked the door a little more carefully than usual. That night, I woke up once. I don't know what time it was, but I remember thinking I heard something in the hallway. Not footsteps, something softer, like fabric moving. I didn't check. The third night, I tried to avoid going out. I don't know why. I hadn't told my wife anything yet. I didn't want to make it into something bigger than it was, but the thought of that hallway lingered. Around midnight, she asked for ice again, and I remember standing at the door for a few seconds before opening it, just listening. Nothing. So I stepped out and immediately saw him. This time, he was closer, standing directly outside room 412 again. But now, he was facing our room, not the door, our door. And he wasn't turning his head slowly anymore. He was already looking at me, like he'd been waiting. I stopped without realizing it. There was something wrong now, something I couldn't explain away anymore. We were maybe 10 feet apart, and he didn't move, didn't blink, didn't shift his weight, just stood there watching me. The hallway felt smaller, like the air had thickened. I don't know how long we stood like that. Probably just a few seconds, but it stretched. Then, finally, he turned, walked to the stairwell, opened the door, and disappeared inside. Again, no sound, no footsteps, nothing. I didn't go to the ice machine. I went straight back into the room and locked the door. That's when I told my wife. She didn't dismiss it, but she didn't see it the same way I did either. Probably someone staying there, she said, maybe waiting for someone. But when I mentioned room 412, she paused. Has anyone been going in or out of that room? I thought about it. No, I hadn't seen anyone, not once. The next morning, I went to the front desk. I tried to keep it casual, asked if the hotel was full, if there were people on our floor. Then I mentioned room 412. The receptionist checked the system. 412 is currently unoccupied, she said, under light repair. That didn't sit right. What kind of repair? I asked. She hesitated. Just minor maintenance. It's not being used. And the stairwell? I asked. The one on the 4th floor. That door should be locked from the inside, she said. Only accessible with a service key. That was the moment something shifted, because I had watched him go in and out of that door more than once. That night, I didn't want to go out again, but around 2 a.m. I woke up. This time, I knew something had woken me. There was a sound, not loud, but close. I got out of bed slowly and walked toward the door, and I could hear it more clearly. Not footsteps, not voices, breathing, soft. Close to the door, I froze. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, then stopped. Completely. No retreating steps, no door, nothing. Just silence again. I didn't open the door. I went back to bed and didn't sleep. The next day, I checked the stairwell myself. I waited until the hallway was empty and tried the door. It opened. Easily. Inside, it smelled stale, like air that hadn't moved in a long time. And halfway down the first landing, I saw them. Blankets, water bottles, a flashlight. Someone had been staying there. That explained part of it. The movement, the appearances. A person using the stairwell. But it didn't explain everything. Because if someone was living there, why stand outside 412? Why face our room? Why breathe outside our door in the middle of the night? And why? No matter how many times I thought about it, could I never remember hearing his footsteps? We left the next morning. I told myself that was the end of it. Just a strange encounter. An uncomfortable coincidence. But it stayed with me. It kept coming back in small ways. Hotel hallways started to feel different. Too quiet. Too controlled. Like something was always just out of sight. About 2 weeks later, I finally gave in. I searched the hotel online. Not reviews, not ratings, old records, news archives, anything. It took a while, but eventually I found something. A small article from 1991, buried in a local archive. A man had been found dead in room 412, mid-40s, visiting alone. Cause of death, heart attack. There was a photo, black and white, grainy, low resolution, but clear enough. Tall, thin, narrow face, deep-set eyes, dark hair. I stared at it for a long time, because the man in that photo looked exactly like him, not similar, not close, exact. The same expression, the same stillness. Even the way his head angled slightly forward, it matched. If he had lived from 1991 to 2011, that's exactly what he would have looked like. I tried to explain it away. Memory is unreliable, faces blur together. The mind fills in gaps, but there were things I couldn't ignore. The hallway camera, I later learned, had been malfunctioning. Every night around the same time. Brief flickers, missing segments. The hotel had records of it, maintenance logs, but no clear cause, and no footage of anyone matching his description entering or leaving the building. Not once. The stairwell still had signs of someone staying there, so yes, there was probably a real person, someone using that space, moving around at night. That part made sense. But here's what doesn't. That person would have needed food, water, movement. They would have made noise. They would have been seen. And yet, every time I saw him, he was perfectly still, perfectly silent, and always near room 412, or watching our door. So maybe there were two of them, one living in the stairwell and one who never left that hallway. The article didn't say how long the man in 412 had been dead before they found him, just that he missed checkout, just that it was a heart attack. But rooms don't stay empty forever, and hallways don't hold on to things. At least, they're not supposed to. All I know is this. Every time I stay in a hotel now, I don't look at the bed first. I don't check the bathroom. I don't even unpack. I look down the hallway, toward wherever it gets quieter, toward wherever it feels colder, and I always expect to see someone standing there, not moving, not leaving, just watching. In 2016, I traveled alone for work to Chicago. It was late October, cold air off the lake, the kind of wind that cuts straight through your coat and makes the city feel sharper than it is during the day. The hotel was downtown, modern, polished marble floors, glass walls, keycard access required to use the elevator, cameras visible in every corner. It looked safe. That's why my company booked it. I checked in just after 10 p.m. The lobby was quiet, a few people at the bar, a businessman on a laptop, a couple arguing softly near the elevators. The woman at the front desk greeted me professionally, but when she handed me the key card, she leaned in slightly. "Room 1812, she said quietly. Then she added even softer, "Don't say it out loud." I laughed automatically. "Is that a rule now?" She didn't laugh back. "Just a precaution," she said. I remember thinking she was being overly cautious. I wish I had taken her more seriously. The first night was normal. I ordered takeout, watched television, answered emails. The room overlooked the city, distant traffic lights blinking in patterns, sirens somewhere far below. I locked the deadbolt and security latch before bed, not because I was afraid, just habit. I fell asleep around midnight. The second night is when it started. I woke up suddenly, not gradually, suddenly. My eyes opened and I knew something had pulled me out of sleep. The room was dark except for the faint city glow around the curtains. Then I heard it. Knock, a pause, knock, longer pause, knock. 3 slow knocks, not aggressive, not loud, measured. I sat up and stared at the door. No voice followed, no housekeeping, no apology, just silence. I checked my phone. 3:12 a.m. I waited. Nothing. After about 20 seconds, I slid out of bed and walked quietly to the door. I looked through the peephole. Empty hallway, brightly lit, clean carpet. Identical doors stretching left and right. No one there. But something felt off. I couldn't explain it at the time. It was the stillness. Too still. I opened the door quickly. The hallway was empty, but as soon as the latch clicked open, I heard it. Footsteps, fast. Rubber soles against carpet, running toward the stairwell at the end of the hall. By the time I reached the corner, the stairwell door was already swinging shut. I called the front desk. They said no one was reported on my floor. Security came up within minutes. They checked the hallway. Nothing. They reviewed the cameras. No one visible near my door at 312. The guard suggested maybe someone knocked on the wrong room and left quickly. It sounded reasonable. That's the problem with reasonable explanations. You accept them, even when your instincts don't. The third night, I stayed awake. I turned off all the lights and sat in the dark with the television muted. 2:58 a.m., 3:07 a.m., 3:11 a.m. I felt ridiculous. Then, knock, 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 exactly the same rhythm. Exactly the same spacing. I didn't move immediately. This time, I watched the door handle. It shifted. Slightly. Not enough to open, just pressure. Testing. A slow downward push. Then release. My throat went dry. I moved to the peephole again. Empty. Completely empty. But this time, I noticed something. A faint shadow at the very edge of the frame. Too close to focus. I opened the door instantly. Nothing in front of me. But as I stepped out, I saw him. At the far end of the hall, near the stairwell. Walking quickly, but not running. Calm. He didn't look back. He pushed open the stairwell door and disappeared. Security came faster this time. They reviewed the footage with me in the security office, and this time, the camera had caught him. At 3:11 a.m., he exited the stairwell. He walked directly to my door. He stood inches away, close enough that his body blocked the camera's angle for exactly 1 minute. Then he knocked. When I opened the door, he didn't run. He stepped flat against the wall beside the frame, positioned perfectly outside the peephole's range, waiting, watching me step into the hallway. The footage showed him slip back toward the stairwell once he heard the elevator. Security zoomed in on his face. Mid-30s, clean-shaven, neutral expression. He didn't look angry. He didn't look nervous. He looked patient. That's what unsettled me. He wasn't trying to force entry. He wasn't drunk. He was studying. They reviewed earlier footage. He had been in the lobby the night I checked in, standing near a pillar, watching the desk, watching guests receive key cards. He never approached the counter, never spoke to staff, but every time a solo traveler walked toward the elevators, he followed shortly after. Not entering the same elevator, taking the stairs. The receptionist had noticed him. That's why she told me not to say my room number out loud. Security believed he targeted solo travelers, especially those arriving alone at night. Rideshare drop-offs, business bags, conference badges, easy to identify. They hadn't connected the pattern before, because not everyone reported it. Some people ignored the knock. Some never woke up. Some opened the door slightly and saw no one. One woman, 2 months earlier, opened her door fully because she thought it was a coworker. He asked her what time breakfast started, then walked away. She never reported feeling threatened. That's how subtle it was. They moved me to a different floor, room 1524. 2 guards escorted me while I packed. When we re-entered 1812, one of the guards crouched near the door frame. "There," he said, quietly. "Small scratches along the latch plate. Fine." Repeated, like someone had been sliding something thin into the gap. Not forcing, testing, measuring. He hadn't just been knocking. He had been checking how the door sat in the frame, seeing how tight the deadbolt caught, seeing whether the latch engaged fully. He wanted to know which doors would give, which guests would hesitate. In room 1524, I pushed the dresser against the door. I barely slept. At 3:12 a.m., there was no knock, but at 3:14, I heard something down the hall. 3 knocks, on someone else's door, slow, measured. I didn't move. I didn't look. I just lay there, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling. The next morning, management told me police were reviewing the case. 2 weeks later, I received a call. They caught him. Not inside the hotel, across the street, in a parking garage, sitting in his car with a direct view of the entrance. In the trunk, they found a small toolkit, blank hotel key cards, and a portable encoder device, stolen months earlier from another property. He had been experimenting, learning layouts, studying behavior. In the back seat, they found a notebook. Dates, room numbers, short notes. Couple, loud. Male, cautious. Female, alone. 1812, hesitant, hesitant. That was my description. Not strong, not aggressive, not alert. Hesitant. The police never confirmed his final intention, but they did confirm this. He had followed multiple guests from the lobby to their floors using the stairwell. He memorized which rooms they entered, and he returned at 3:12 a.m., because statistically, that's when people are in their deepest sleep cycle. He wasn't knocking at random times. He was patient. He was listening for movement, for hesitation, for the kind of silence that means someone is deciding whether to open it. I still travel for work, same hotels, same quiet hallways, but I don't open the door at night anymore. Not for knocking, not even for silence. Because I understand something now. Some people don't force their way in. They don't need to. They figure out who will let them in on their own, waiting to hear how long it takes for someone on the other side to lose their patience. If this terrifying story stayed with you, leave a like. And if you want more real scary stories, subscribe to The Night Story.